This segment is brought to you by St. Martin and Bourke. Know your rights. All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Martin Falls, joined today by Tanner McGee, a local attorney here in the area and also served in the state legislature. Very well known to the community. And good to see you, Counselor. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me, Martin.
Yeah. And just to let the public know, I brought Tanner on because you may recall we did a story on the coroner, Patrick Walker, Dr. Patrick Walker, who was handcuffed and escorted to a law enforcement vehicle. There you see Herbert Fitch bringing the coroner out. And the reason we want to expound on this case is because the coroner, in a lot of financial crisis, which led to this arrest. And so I thought it needed more talk. We needed to explain this more because whenever you get a public figure who's been arrested, it leads to a lot of other questions. So I wanted to bring in Tanner McGee to talk about that. So also, let me just roll in. We did have the coroner on the set that day, and he came in his own words and explained to me what he thought it was. And in honesty, he told me that he was working out some things, but we've learned that it's pretty extensive. And Tan, I know you've been able to look at the situation, and I guess the purpose today is a person in this capacity that cannot manage their own affairs. Can they still do their job and do it in a good way if they can't manage their own affairs?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, you have to look at the public has the right to decide what it believes that is, correct? I mean, that's what the election process is for. Yeah. But from a legal standpoint, we need to kind of maybe inform the public of exactly what we're talking about here. Yeah. Dr. Walker, and I'm not involved in any of the legal stuff, so I want to make sure your viewers know that. Yeah. He's had several creditors file lawsuits against him. And his response to these lawsuits was to ignore them. It's a great lesson for people that ignoring your legal problems is not a way to make them go away. That just makes them worse. I know people don't want to deal with lawyers, but it's what you need to do, right? And so as a consequence of that, his creditors have taken a series of default judgments against him. And then they wanted to enforce their rights against him, and he hasn't shown up for court is really what led to this. He's been avoiding it completely. And so that's the ultimate remedy. And look, I want to be very clear with you, Martin. The court system doesn't want to do that to anybody. They don't want to arrest somebody who hasn't committed a quote-unquote crime. That's the most extreme remedy in these circumstances is when you don't do it. And you're really getting arrested for not showing up for court. Mm-hmm. That is troubling for somebody who has responsibilities as a public official that they've neglected their affairs so much. As it stands now, it's unclear, what the total ramifications are going to be, but it definitely suggests that there is some management issues for sure.
And I think that's what spurred this second story on this is because when we ran the first one, we were getting more people calling us and going, he owes me money.
Right.
And you're right. I think for us to be judge, jury, and executioner in this, because it's a civil matter.
It is.
It's different. We're used to coming on and saying, okay, somebody embezzled money or somebody did this. This is not so much the case, but these civil matters are extremely expensive. There's a lot of money owed to
It's a case of extreme neglect of your civil management. And I think the thing that's most troubling is, and I think it's the part that people don't talk about enough, when you are an elected official, you're not just doing the job per se, you're also managing an office. You're managing the public's finances. I'm not sure of anybody who's in public office that isn't to a degree managing the public's finances. Mm-hmm. For example, Joe Waits, he's prosecuting the crime of this parish, but he's also got 200 employees, budget, accountants. I mean, you got more than just what the outward facing of the public is. And I think the sort of the issues that Dr. Walker's fired himself calls into question that side of it. Is he managing the office in the way that he should? Because it appears, based off of what we're seeing in the court records, that he's not doing it on his personal side.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about the fact that it could be, I guess, skewed over to the personal side of personal practice, but I also want to get more into, is he held to a higher standard because he is an elected official?
Absolutely. And I think also what he says, we don't know Dr. Walker's true legal side of the story because he's never put it in a courtroom yet. We don't know what the situation is because he just refused to answer. And I think that is really, it's really causing a lot of problems because you don't know, does he have the money to pay for these creditors? He's choosing not to. Does he not have the money? Is there an extenuating circumstance as why he's not doing it? You know, in this climate, you have stuff like he got shorted maybe from FEMA. So I'm not saying it's the case, but we don't know the answer to that because
he hasn't appeared.
He hasn't appeared.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that's really driving our questions. So many questions right now that need to be answered, and they need to be answered not in a television station where you can kind of say what you want. They need to be answered where you're held to a standard of being under oath.
Yeah, and we'll take a break here. We'll come back to, that's a good point, Tana, because we've been fair with him. We want to be fair with him, but if he's just not appearing and not filling in the blanks, the public will fill in the blanks.
Absolutely. And you don't want rumors to take the place of fact. And, you know, that's the scenario we have, but it's incumbent on him to file those answers.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back with local attorney Tana McGee. This segment was brought to you by St. Martin and Bork. Know your rights. All right, welcome back. And we thought we'd come on and talk about the cases of Dr. Patrick Walker, who's the coroner here in Terrebonne Parish. And not to cast aspersions, but it's widely known on Facebook and YouTube that he had some financial difficulties in paying creditors and paying contractors, and thus led to the question, is he capable of managing the parish coroner's office if he's having trouble on a personal end? Now, we don't know what it is because, like the consul here said, Tanner McGee, he hasn't been to court to tell his side. We always offer him a chance to come here and tell us that, or if he appears in court, we could use those records to do that. So, Mr. McGee, I'll come back to you. Faithful female investigator when pulling a lot of papers from me. I think you've seen a lot of those papers. This is more than one court system, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, he's got stuff here in what we call district court, also we call Houma City Court. And usually what the difference would be is the one at city court is going to be something that's $30,000 or less. So whoever creditor are, they think he owes them less than $30,000. Anything above that's going to be a district court. So people think that he owes more than that, it's going to be a district court. There's multiple cases, and I believe there's some out of parish cases as well.
There's also, I guess, personal practice, coroner's office, different dealings of that nature. So I guess it's a mess, but once again, we keep going to the fact that just appear in court and sort of set the record straight.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the most basic thing is when somebody files a petition against you or a lawsuit, you answer it and you file a document saying, I deny these allegations, and then that sets up opportunities for a trial so you could provide why. Dr. Walker just hasn't filed that answer in any one of these pleadings, which means he had to know about them because you get served and you're not required to answer until you've been served. So we do know that he's aware of all of this stuff. He just has chosen not to or neglected filing it timely, which has led to us where we are. And then when they called him into court to collect on these default judgments because he hasn't answered anything, he hasn't shown up. You know, and before the break, Martin, you brought up the fact is he's a public official, right? And that's important because the coroner's office is not something that's used to being in the limelight. You know, you get a lot of scrutiny over the DA's office, the parish president's office, you know, these kind of not higher offices, but bigger ticketed, more higher profile. Yeah. And so the public doesn't get a look at some of these smaller offices all the time. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't, right? I mean, I think that's still the public's money. It's still the public's trust. And so that's where we are. And, as you said, public officials are always called to a higher standard. That's true for a defamation case. That's true for this kind of case. The standards between the public official and the general public are completely different.
Yeah. A judge, we all know the judges in Terrebonne Parish, to a T, they will give you the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And look, they don't want to arrest a non-crime committing citizen of the parish. It's really, truly an option of last resort. And I know that, probably almost every single judge would put a lot of thought before they would issue an arrest warrant and whether it was truly a warrant. And if they had any other option to get the case moving and resolved, they would have chose the other option.
And I know the coroner came on my channel and said it was unnecessary, didn't have to go that route. But in fairness to the judges in the court system, if you're not going to court and pleading your side, they don't have any other way to find out.
They don't have any other way. I mean, that's you. Really, it's the last remedy when the judge has finally had enough, throws his hand in the air. Okay, go get him. And usually, it's more than one time of not showing up to court. They don't. I mean, it is an extreme remedy in a civil situation for you to have that kind of result. So no judge took it lightly making that decision. Usually, it's multiple attempts. I'm sure they were aware of who they were doing, and they did not want to publicly embarrass somebody like that. I'm sure that was well in the back of their mind. But when you give them no option, you give them no option.
In closing, does he have a chance? In other words, there's still contractors out there that have not been paid. So if he pays them back or finds a way, we don't know his finances, so maybe he has money, maybe he does. But if he finds a way to take care of that, finds a way to appease the judges in court, can he come out of this unscathed? Well, not unscathed, but at least able to keep his capacity as coroner?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I think the main thing that he's facing is whether the public wants to go through one of the extreme remedies like a recall petition. I mean, I think that's how you would recall a current one, right? Mm-hmm. And if he's able to get his finances in order and get his other situations in order, for next time he's reelection, he has to qualify again. He has to have the same qualifications. For be a coroner, you have to have a medical license. Unless nobody in the parish has one who will run, then you don't have to have a medical license. I would assume, given the breadth of doctors we have in this community, somebody else will run next time if he has not gotten his affairs in order.
Yeah, so I think it'd be fair for us to offer again for Dr. Walker to either come on if he wants to tell his side of the story or at least appear in the court cases and do it that way where we could pull the information and report it.
And look, I think, if he wasn't a public official, Martin, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I mean, it's not right for private citizens if they're having bad finances to be hauled in front of HTV to talk about it, right?
That's correct.
We would never be doing that. I think the real heart of the issue is he is a public official. It might be a smaller, minor office, but it's still a public office.
And he's managing public money.
And the public has a right to know, and they have a right to have answers to these questions.
All right, Tanner, good seeing you again. We appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on, like always.
All right, Tanner McGee, once again, we appreciate him coming on. We'll continue to cover this story and hope it has a good ending. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you again on other HTV stories. This segment was brought to you by Barker Honda. It's better at Barker.